Hi, Matt with eTrailer. If you have a 2024 Kia Telluride and you want to get a good look on top of your roof and something that's going to grab onto your rails really nicely as well, then I recommend checking out the Yakima CoreBar Roof Rack. So let's check it out. So right off the bat, what we have today are raised rails, and the Telluride is going to have three different options. You can either have one with raised rails, one with flush rails, or a naked roof. And really what the difference is, with the raised rails, you can actually come by over here and grip around here and get your fingers underneath the rails. With a flush rail, I won't be able to do that. I can only get my hands around it like this, and it's going to be flush with our roof. And a naked roof isn't going to have any rails at all. And it's also important to make sure you're getting or looking at the right kit for you, so I recommend just putting in your vehicle's information into our fit guide to find the right one for you. What's really nice about having a raised rail option is, one, it's a really easy installation, and two, it's only going to have two components to it. So the first one is going to be our 60-inch CoreBar crossbars up top, and below that, we're going to have our Yakima towers. So taking a closer look at that CoreBar, this is going to have a pretty simple design to it. It's just going to be one bar that goes across, and it's going to have this arrow shape to it. That arrow shape is going to help it be more aerodynamic to help reduce any wind noise. So that's going to come with this end cap. This is just for when you're installing your towers onto here. Pretty easy to use. It also makes attaching your towers really easy too, because we don't have to worry about any channels, how it gets mounted to. And we're going to have this clamp that goes around it. This is going to be an adapter that grabs on to your towers. And taking a closer look at this tower, you'll notice right off the bat we got this little circle at the very front of it. It's going to have this plastic core in it. What that plastic core is doing is just being more of a safe holder. So if later on down the road you wanted to get a metal locking core, you could do that just for some additional security. And what's really nice about those lock cores is you can actually get them key to like with your other Yakima accessories. But if I remove this, we can kind of check out what's happening underneath here. So this is going to be all the mechanisms that give us our great fit today. What I really like about this is that we actually have this rubber strap that goes all the way around. Having a rubber strap that goes all the way around your bars is just going to give you a great fit because we won't have any gaps. Now we can get a few measurements just to see how this is going to live up here. So the first one I'm going to get is going to be the overall height. It sticks up. And that's going to be just about 4 inches, which is actually pretty good. That's not going to stick up too crazy high. Now it is important to just make sure you take the total height of your vehicle plus your crossbars. And if you have anything on top of that, include that too. So if you're going through any low clearance areas, you know you can make it or not. The next thing I'm going to measure is going to be the clearance underneath. That's going to be just about 3 inches, which is pretty good. Now, it is important to know if you have a sunroof that goes further back. We're in luck right now because the sunroof we have doesn't extend this far back, so you shouldn't have any complications with that. And if you have any really bulky clamps, just kind of think about that because that might be a little bit tight depending on how those clamps work. But what is really nice about these bars is they will work with most clamp-on accessories. If you have anything that's really standard or really custom fit to a certain type of bar, it might not, but most of them should fit. As for our crossbar spread, that's going to be kind of up to you where you want to place it, because depending on what gear you have is going to depend on what your crossbar spread is going to be, because you can change where these are placed. Now, something to think about is if you push this too far back, depending on what you have up here, might interfere with your hatch. And if you push this too far forward, you might get a little bit of overhang over your sunroof or maybe even your windshield, just depending on what you're carrying. So definitely keep that in mind. As for our overhang, this actually isn't going to stick up too much. Now, if you are a little bit taller and you're really close to your vehicle, you might bump your head on it, but won't be very likely. But what this will be great for is if you have anything that you want really close to the side of your vehicle, anything like a ski carrier or a basket, that's going to be really nice because you won't have to reach in and try to grab whatever you're trying to reach. As for weight capacity, it's really going to be determined by your roof because these are going to be some pretty sturdy bars. So what I'd recommend doing is just checking out what your roof capacity is and then just double checking what your instructions say what these can handle. Now, in my opinion, I think this is a great option for anyone who does want a pretty clean look to the top of your roof and you really like that fitment because that rubber strap is giving us full coverage on top of our rails. Now, another option I'd recommend checking out would be the Rhino-Rack Roof Rack. What's really nice about that is it's an even easier install. You only have to tighten down one bolt to get them into place. The downside though is they actually don't have a bottom side to them, so you won't get the full coverage that you're getting with these. But the installation process is going to be pretty much the same thing. If you are curious to see that, just stay tuned and we'll walk you through it. To start off the installation, I like to lay everything out. And you also notice I already have the rear crossbar installed, but both of them are going to be the same process. So first off, I'm going to make sure I have my crossbar and I'm going to make sure I have my towers. This one's already put together. Now, how they're going to come to you is probably going to be not put together. So we're going to have this adapter, this clamp that goes around your core bar, and then the tower itself. Or have the end caps, and then you're going to have an included tool. And what I like about this is it's going to have this built-in torque device, so it lets you know when everything's tightened enough. And what I recommend grabbing is just a tape measure just to make sure everything's even. So let's start off by actually getting this tower ready. So the first thing I'm going to do is flip this around, and we're going to find that we have this hole. If you look inside that hole, we have this bolt. And there's two ways you can access it, and that's just going to depend on how tight this is. I can just push this out of the way, and it's going to reveal a bolt on the other side of there that I'll tighten up. Now, if this is too tight, what I'm going to have to do is come back over, grab our Allen key, and loosen this up a bit. Now I've already loosened this up some, so now I have access to it. So I'm going to make sure that path is clear. I'm going to make sure my Allen key can get to that bolt. And then I'm going to flip this around. And now you can see that bolt on the other side is shifting. What I'm going to do from here is grab that clamp for our crossbar. And I'm just going to loosely tighten it on. I want to make sure I'm doing this in the right orientation too. So a lot of times I'll let it just grab on to begin with and just compare it to this one. So see how this one's going to go in place? This is going to go on one side of our crossbar, and we want to make sure this is facing out. And see the orientation of this? It should be facing the same direction. So once that looks good, I'm actually going to remove this because I forgot to put on our adapter. So I'm going to remove that real quick. And putting on the adapter is really easy. All I have to do is line it up, push it into place, and it should click on to let you know it's all the way secured. And now I'll re-put this on. And I don't want to put it on all the way, I just want to make sure it's kind of loose, just so I can make my adjustments later on. And now we can put on our towers, so I'm just going to remove our end cap. Just slides right off. And you can actually put them both on from the same side. So like I said earlier, we want to make sure that bolt is facing out. You can actually put them both on like this, but instead I'm just going to push this all the way to the other side of our crossbar. So it sits like that. Then I'll grab my second one, put it on this end. And this is what we're aiming for it to look like. When they're both on, then I'm just going to grab this rubber end cap and place it back into place. Before you get this on top of your roof, you want to make sure it's in the right orientation. So we're going to have this thicker side. We want to make sure that's facing forward on the front of our vehicle, and the thinner side behind us. From here, I'm just going to lift up, and I'm just going to roughly place it on top of our roof, trying to get it lined up with our raised rails. It doesn't have to be perfect to begin with. We can make adjustments later on. The first adjustment we're going to make is going to be our crossbar spread. And really that's just going to depend on what you're hauling. Just make sure if you have a box, a basket, or a kayak carrier, you just know the dimensions of what you need. What I'm going to go with today is going to be 30 inches because that's pretty standard. I'm just going to adjust it just a tad bit, pushing this front one just a bit. Once I've moved that, I can adjust the other side as well. The second adjustment is going to be making sure that our overhangs are the same on both sides. So where I like to start with that is making sure our tower is fully flush on our rails. As you can see, we have that gap there. I'm going to fix that real quick just by pushing it into place. Once I've done that, I'm just going to measure my overhang a bit. And I already know right off the bat that's not going to be enough. So I need to push that other side over some. And the trick to doing that is not really coming over here and pulling on the crossbar, but going to the other side and just tapping it with your hand. To make sure it stays in place, I'm going to grab this rubber strap on the bottom of it. And if it doesn't seem like you have enough length to reach it, try pushing in this bolt. It's going to release some excess of that strap, and you can put it around there. If you still don't have enough, just loosen this bolt up some and you have a little bit more excess. With everything even now and squared off, we can tighten this down. So I like to start with this bolt on the bottom because we're going to have two of them. And the reason I like to start with this one is just so we can really hold down the tower if we need to make any more adjustments so it doesn't slide around on us. And I just want to tighten this enough until we make contact fully around our rails. So this can take a little bit, but I just don't want this to be too tight because it can pull on one side and affect our fitment. Right now we have a little bit of resistance. So now I'm going to go to this bolt right above it. And I'm going to tighten this one down just a little bit. I don't want to tighten that down fully. I just want to go until I get a little bit of resistance where it's a little bit hard to turn. Once I've done that, I'm going to go over to the other side, do the exact same thing, going back and forth until this is fully secured down. Now how you know this is going to be tightened down all the way is when you start hearing the clicks from this device. And what this bolt on the bottom does is just tighten down that strap that attaches to your roof or your rails. And what that bolt above it does, it's kind of in that hole, that actually tightens down that clamp that goes around your core bars so it's not loose up there. And one of the last steps is just grabbing your end caps, putting them onto place, and just click on. And if you have the lock cores that go along with them, you can lock them into place too. Afterwards, I just like to give it a good shake test, make sure it's not going anywhere. And afterwards, if it feels good, you can load it up and take it out for a ride. That was just a look at our Yakima CoreBar Roof Rack on top of our 2024 Kia Telluride. I'm Matt, thanks for watching.